Good morning, everyone. It is January 6th, 2024. This is episode 38 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, and this is a very special episode because I have my first ever guest on my podcast, and that is the very funny comedian Jas Clay. Hello, Chase. Thank you for being here. Make sure you get that up in your grill.
This is awesome. Yeah, this is trying to navigate this.
Yeah, we're only comedians. It's not like we know how to use a microphone.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So Jason and I have been doing a little mini tour together here. So we performed in New Mexico last night and tonight, because this will air Saturday morning. So we're filming it Friday. But
Going to
Colorado. So
hoping not to die in the snow. The treacherous paths up there.
Yes.
So.
And we've also been traveling with your wife, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, she's great.
She has been driving the whole time. So we started in Phoenix. We drove all the way to New Mexico, and now we're driving all the way up to Colorado, all the way back to Phoenix. So cool that you have a supportive wife.
Yeah. She drives all the time. I mean, she likes to drive. She doesn't want me to drive, of course, but like it's nice because I just show up to places and I'm like, where am I?
So she could be taking you anywhere.
I wouldn't know. She's like, yeah, we're here. Go to this bowling alley.
She could be taking you to bury you in the woods.
Yeah.
We would never know it.
I know.
So, Chase, thank you so much for being here. So I tout, I like that word, I tout. I sort of advertise this podcast as a podcast for dreamers by dreamers. I'm all about going for dreams in life, and I've just been sharing my journey. So as my first guest, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your comedy journey, what your dreams are, how that shows up for you, and just give us a little insight into the life of Chase.
I love comedy. It is definitely a dream of mine to be able to be successful at it. I've been doing it for a long time. I don't know. I don't even know how I got into comedy, to be honest. I'm surprised I'm doing it half the time, but if I could be successful at it, that'd be great. I have a lot of years doing it, so but for me it's just like a way to connect to people being the most me and creating that sort of environment where people are laughing and having a good time, and I like that aspect of it. I don't care so much about being famous with it. I just enjoy that experience with people and sharing that time with people. So I don't know if I can make a living at it, great, but I think like for me, I love comedy, but my relationship, like with my wife we're talking about, like that for me is like paramount. And so comedy is more of a reflection of that. So if that's the most important thing for me. But if I can make a living at comedy, that would be great.
And you said, I think it's interesting, you said you don't really know how you got into it. Do you remember your first show, your first open mic, how it first happened when you got on stage and started throwing jokes in a mic?
Yeah, well, the whole reason I got into, like, I always made people laugh. Like, I would sit around a table and I would take ideas and people would say things and I would just, like, start kind of putting them together and creating something, and it just happened naturally. And it happened so fast that I didn't even know what I was saying. I would see people laughing and I'm like, what did I just say? But it feels like you're just kind of like a conduit and things are just kind of flowing out of you. And so I could create these situations and people would come over, hang out with us, and you could just see them. They're like, what am I watching? And so I'm like, well, maybe I can do that on stage. But I would have never, because I'm too neurotic. But I had a doctor. He's like, well, you're going to have testicular cancer, and that's going to be it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try comedy. Let me just do it. I'll get out there.
If I can't have balls, might as well.
Yeah. I was like, let me have them in the most, whatever. Like, because it takes a lot of, to get out there.
Well, if everybody said you don't have the balls to do comedy, you're like, well, I don't have balls at all.
Yeah, none whatsoever. I'm a eunuch. So.
Yeah, well,
I baked this base.
I really talk like that.
Yeah, no. It was, I'm very fortunate, and God forbid anybody have cancer and stuff like and go through that. But like, it was very scary. And he said it, and I was in the other room. He said, like, there's nothing we can do. This is, and I'll give him the bad, like I could hear him from the other room. So that's just deeper.
You overheard him? Yeah. Who was he talking to? The nurse or something?
I don't know. Maybe he's on the phone talking to,
dude, you wouldn't believe this patient, bro. You should have seen his balls, man. They were huge.
They're so big.
This dude's taking a mic. Wait, hold on. He's on the other row. Hold on. I'll call you back.
Okay, I'm gonna pretend to be serious now.
Okay. Chase, you have testicular cancer, and it's not looking good for you.
Yeah. No, it was really terrible to overhear something like that.
Oh,
because then you believe it. Like that's the truth.
Yeah. What's worse, hearing something like that or overhearing something like that?
It's the worst way to get it. I think more doctors should do that.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy, I gotta tell this guy's not malignant.
That's malignant. Yeah.
That's you, son of a.
That's so funny. All right. Overhearing a diagnosis from the other room from your doctor, and you're like, well,
yeah.
If I'm gonna go, I might as well go out trying to make people laugh. Huh?
Yeah. So I'm like, well, let me get up in front of people. I have nothing to lose at this point. So I started doing comedy, and it's been a long journey.
So I love that you say, if you can make a living at it, great, but that's not really the most important thing. And I think that's really important because I feel like with this whole dreaming thing, going for dreams, I feel like there's sort of this pressure. It's like you either have to be Jerry Seinfeld or you're worthless. You know what I mean? If you're not famous and making $100 million, then your dreams don't matter.
Right. Sort of upper echelon. But there's a lot of people who do comedy who aren't known, who are making a living at it, who do fine. So there's, like we were talking about, you can do like corporate work or, colleges. There's different ways that people might not even know who you are, but you're successful. But yeah, but to even be that level, it's not as important to me. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's what's so great is that whatever your dream is, it doesn't have to look like anybody else's dream or what anybody else tells you it's supposed to be. It's, well, what's important to me? And I love that. It's like, well, what's important to me is my wife, number one.
Yeah.
Like that relationship. So that to me, when I'm hearing you is, well, that actually is the dream, is to have a successful relationship with my wife. And also to be able to perform comedy on my terms, whatever that looks like, what you're out there doing. We're having this super fun road trip. We had a great, so great. It was at a casino in, what's it, Mescula? I could not say that name yesterday.
No, once you said it like that, I couldn't say it.
Mescalero.
Into the Mountain Gods. And people were just hanging out with us. They want to buy you shots. And this lady's like, it's my birthday, and they're taking pictures, and she's going, live on her camera doing whatever, social media platform. But like that experience, and people are just like, you're really connected, and that is amazing. That's that's why I like to do this.
Yeah, and I just love that, and I think one of my main motivation for doing this podcast is to just free people from whatever the expectations is, whatever the pressure is.
Yeah.
This really is about finding joy and finding fulfillment and crafting the life that you want in the way that's important to you. And that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And by the way, if fame and blowing up and being the next Seinfeld or the Kevin Hart is your dream, I say go for that all in. But if that isn't actually where your heart is and where your fulfillment is, there's so many other ways to, I think, experience a fulfilling life, experience your dreams, and have it look however you want it to look. So I love that you're out there, you're still pursuing comedy, but, your wife's coming on this road trip with us, and the fact that she is involved in this and supportive, and you have a relationship and you invest in that, and that's important to you, while still getting to do comedy, while still getting to pursue it. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I feel like without like that relationship and having that like sort of connection is when I get on stage, I feel like I have something to kind of put out there. And I can connect to people on a sort of more of a deeper level, I guess. But I don't know. I don't have to be like totally successful, but I just like those moments of sharing, because it's growing up. That's like how I connected with my family, is just creating these like fun environments. So like it's actually kind of like hanging out. Like I'm creating a family for like whatever time I'm on stage. It's like that, reliving that experience. And it's awesome. So, if I can make a living at it, great. But
yeah, and I love that. And I have seen your interactions with your wife and how supportive she is, how she's constantly encouraging you. I've heard some negative self. This is actually a stealth therapy session, Chase. I need it. Yeah, tell me about this negative self-talk. But, we all do it. I talk about that so much, about the internal negative voice. And I love that your wife is going like, Chase, you're going to be fine. No, I really like when you do that joke. I like when you do that joke. And she's constantly encouraging you. And I think that that's great that you have that support system and that you found that partner.
Right.
And I think that there maybe is some hesitation for some people. Well, if I get in a relationship, it's going to tie me down. It's going to bog me down. They won't support me. And it's going, well, if that's the case, it's probably not the right relationship.
Right. Yeah. No, it can be tough to find somebody who's supportive of your dreams, and because you're with comedy, it's not like you can't really predict what shows you're going to do, when you're going to do it.
Right.
There's a lot of instability, and to have somebody be able to go along with that and just be okay with it is pretty phenomenal, and that's hard to find, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So,
very cool. So why don't you tell us, maybe I'd love to hear just some of highlights of your comedy career. Were there any shows that stood out that, obviously last night's show, but
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that was great. They were so much fun. The place was packed, and people were just there for comedy, and you can feel it when people are just out to have a good time and they want to laugh, and it just creates this sort of synergy, and I've been doing this for so long that you can just really capitalize off that, and that was a lot of fun, and to work with you and stuff. And this has been, I feel like that was one of my more favorite shows, actually.
So has there been any dark moments of the soul, Chase? Any, what am I doing? Should I be giving this up? And every time, right
before the show, and my wife's like, "You're fine. Get out there. Do great. Don't forget that joke."
So tell me, in those experiences, when you have those, and it's maybe been an extreme one, what sort of pushed, obviously your wife, but is there anything else that motivates you? What pulls you through those experiences?
When you're thinking, I don't believe in giving up. I think I write down every time I'm successful, and I keep it, because otherwise I'll just remember when I wasn't. So I have just a list, and I go through and I remember these experiences, and I don't know. I'm not a person to give up. I'm just gonna keep trudging through. I already thought I was gonna have testicular cancer. Doctor in the other room, right? So I'm not gonna give up. So I'm just gonna keep going. What? Quit? Are you kidding me? No.
Right.
Just moving forward. And the experiences like last night are worth it, to have those connections, and you can just feel that people are like genuine. If you do bad in comedy, nobody will tell you good job. Nobody will talk to you. They go out of their way. They don't even pretend. But when they come up to you and they're like, you can feel the warmth, and they're like really, there's like a connection. That's because you were successful at something, and you were able to have that connection with them. There's a lot that goes into it outside of performing, but that last night was a lot of fun. So,
yeah, that's incredibly rewarding. So that I talk about in my act about calling the suicide hotline, and I bring that up in my act, and I'll have people now come up to me and just say, hey, that meant a lot to me. I have a daughter, or I have an uncle who's in the military, or
it's great when you get to make the heavier stuff funny, and bring some light to it, because a lot of people are going through stuff.
And alchemize it so we can talk about it, we can laugh about it, but then also it opens people up to have conversations about real stuff. And so I love that, and I loved your set was really great. I loved you brought a couple on stage, which was really, really fun.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun.
And interacting with them, just So what would you say? You talked a little bit about the synergy. What do you think is your main motivation for doing comedy? Is it just that connecting with the crowd? Is that what gets you on that stage every time?
Yeah, I think connecting with the crowd, and then I think when you do have success, I think there's you feel more fulfilled just in general. You can feel it. You just feel more like you've done something in your existence. You can feel there's a sense of, I don't know, I guess a fulfillment, right? You just feel more complete as a person. And whether or not before a show you're like, I shouldn't do this, I'm wasting my time, all this negative stuff. You go through all that. You go through the gamut of emotions. Do I even deserve it? Just a lot of negative stuff. But after a show, and when it's successful, you just feel more complete, I think, as a person, and you feel like you've done something with your existence, and you've made people's lives somewhat more uplifted, or if that's the way to say that. But it's kind of that. I think that's huge.
Love that. So, can I do a little exercise with you? By the way, it's my first interviewee, so I'm pulling stuff out of my arse here. So, So again, I talk a lot about going for dreams, and one of the things, so when I first sort of got introduced to this idea of dreaming, it was actually, there was a guy who I used to work with, and his official title for a company was called Dream Manager, a guy named Dan Rouse, incredible guy. So he was like a glorified life coach in-house, which he was incredibly influential in my life. He was very big on, when I worked for the software company, and I actually sat down with him, and he really helped me. He was very influential in me moving to LA and really going for my dreams.
Okay, so that kind of started your comedy journey?
Well, not necessarily my comedy journey, but really moving to LA and being like, am I going to really go for this? And one of the exercises that he would do, and I would love to do this, I know we didn't, I didn't prepare you for this, so hopefully it's not a lot of pressure, but if you could paint your ideal dream day. So you have these dreams, you talk about being successful, making money at comedy. I would love, just off the top of your head, what does that day look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing? What are you involved in? If all of your comedy dreams came true.
Yeah.
How's that, Chase?
Yeah.
How's that for dropping a bomb on you?
That would be great. I think my ideal day, I don't know. Like, I think maybe if I'm getting up in a place that's comfortable with my wife, and she's got her business. She has her own business she does, as she found out on this trip.
Yeah.
And she's successful with that. And then I have a show I'm going to where people want to see me maybe. And so it's a more like a well put together like venue, and I know when the next show is coming, and it's just like a steady, like I'm doing shows continuously, and I kind of like, that's my influx of money and financial stability, and my wife is doing her thing, and we're just kind of living together. And that would, I don't know, that's kind of deep. I have to think about a lot. And we have our cats, and
well, it is. I mean, it is really fascinating, because I feel like we all kind of have these dreams and wants, but to really like articulate it, be like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And I've been talking about that on previous episodes too, and I wrote it down. So mine is similar, which is, and what's really cool is I'm sort of living it already on a minor scale, which is cool when you write it down and then you start to see it happen, which is like I wake up and I go to set and I'm filming, a show, or I have an audition.
Right.
And then that night I have a show where people are coming to see me perform. And it's so funny because I told you yesterday, it's like I had a voiceover audition, you know what I mean? And then I went, and then I went and did my show, podcasting.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and I like how you said, but then I have, shows lined up. And I think probably for me, the next step, and I've talked about this previously, is if you're not famous, right? Usually when people are going to see a comedy show, they're going for one of two reasons. Either they know the show or they know the comedian, right?
Yeah.
So there are shows that have built an audience. For like example, the show we did last night. Right. It's like Inn of the Mountain Gods has a recurring comedy show that they advertise to the people who are coming to the casino. And any comic,
in my head, they were there to see us.
Yeah, in our head they were. Well, we were on the flyer.
Yeah. So there you go.
And that flyer was a nice glossy finish, right?
Yeah. They went.
But reality is, it could have been, it's plug and play. It could have been any comics last night, and next week it's going to be different comics, right? As opposed to, Paul Green, Jas Clay is going to be at this venue. I'm going to go buy a ticket to see him. And I think that to me is sort of the next step for me is, and I heard a little bit of that in your, when you're just talking about your dreams, is that people know who I am and they are paying money to see me, instead of, I'm just going to go to this venue or this sort of recurring comedy show, which has built an audience.
Well, yeah, just on a basic, like doing comedy, if they're there to see you, it makes your job so much easier.
Right.
It makes connecting with people easier there.
Right.
So,
well, and we talked a little bit about that too, in terms of comedians who are really taking risks, who are very unique.
Yeah.
And how, and we talked about what a struggle it must have been for them to go through so many audiences who maybe don't get them and don't appreciate them. However, through that, then they're able to build an audience, and then that comic knows that anybody who buys a ticket, it's because they know who this comic is and they specifically want to see that personality and that character. And I thought about that a lot too. It's like, it seems every show there seems to be like, we're funny enough, like we're entertaining in general, but then there will be like 2 or 3 people or maybe one person who just seems to be laughing at a whole other level. And I try to think to myself, what if this whole room was those people? What if it was her times 100 or him times 100, the people who really are getting me and understanding me, as opposed to the people who go like, oh, okay, he's kind of funny, but...
people you're really connecting with. If there's just a couple in the crowd, no, definitely.
And getting to the point to where those types of people are the entire audience.
Well, and I don't know if I can ask you, but this is our first time working together and stuff. What got you into comedy?
Oh my gosh. You want the deep side? You have a psychology degree too, right? So we're flipping this around. Pulled a little 180 where the interviewer becomes the interviewee. Well, the deep psychological reason was trying to get my dad's attention as a kid. So I distinctly remember as a kid, when we'd have to go to bed early or whatever, and I would be up in my room.
Make you go to bed?
Yeah, no, right.
Hey, Dad, what's the deal?
Wow, hey, going to bed, what's the deal? Why they say you're going to bed? I mean, I'm in the bed. I'm not going to the bed. All right.
You gotta go to bed, son.
What? Yeah,
That's ground.
we all turned into 1930s. Well, it's funny. My dad was a big Marx Brothers fan. It's funny bring that up. But I remember I would be up in my room and I hear my dad, and he has a very distinct laugh. So we'd be downstairs watching comics, watching Saturday Night Live, which we weren't allowed to watch because it was on too late, and it was whatever when I was kids and when we were kids and stuff. And so I just thought in my mind, to get my dad's attention, I need to be funny. So I would start trying to learn those SNL characters and, impersonate them. So I could do Hans and Friedrich to pop you up. And, I would do all that. And the motivational speaker and, all the Mike Myers, Wayne's World, all the Jim Carrey stuff. And then that's also when I would go to school and I was trying to figure out how I fit in socially. That's how I fit in, is I would start entertaining my class. I would make jokes, It came from a deep-rooted insecurity. It came from this...
So you were good at talking to like kind of like not a class clown, but like somebody...
Totally. Yeah. It's always... I felt really comfortable. Well, it wasn't that I felt comfortable entertaining. I was actually scared to death. But that's how I had this anxiety and this nervousness socially ever. And I still have it even as an adult. I mean, every time I get on stage, before stage, I have this like, oh my gosh, is this group of people going to like me? You know what I mean?
It's been almost like breathing into a brown paper bag. You get done with the show and people are like, you are a comic, and they're so excited. And you're like, you don't know what before I got up.
Oh, yeah, especially because I think I told you a little bit about that New Year's Eve show that I did, which was probably the worst show I've ever done. So, I mean, and that's the thing is every show has the potential to be abysmal.
You never know when it's...
Also the potential to go great, but that risk is always there. That risk is always there. And so, you never really know. It's like, is this going to be the one that's going to fall off the cliff? And it almost never does, but every once in a while it does. And again, just last week, I had one just go off the rails. It was so bad. But yeah, so I mean, as a kid, that's what I was experiencing was those nerves. But
your dad over
trying to win my dad over, and trying to win my 4th grade class over.
Right? Did you get in trouble with the teacher, or were you like that, like out of?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, they would have to rein me in, but I was never a bad kid. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. I think they appreciated that I was. I was outgoing. I was doing jokes. I was doing skits.
Key and Bill says the high pot news. I wish I was high on pot news.
I don't think I know that one.
Oh yeah, you're just like
the only Key and Bill I can think of is that. Hey, Ron, where's the hey, Ron at?
Nice.
You mean Aaron? Okay, that's how it's gonna be. So yeah, I mean, it was never a matter of me being rebellious. It was a matter of survival. It was a matter of me just trying to figure out how I fit in. And so that propensity for entertainment and impersonations, and it's like I still remember being in my living room, and I could do like entire scenes from Wayne's World. You know, I could do the whole Garth Foxy lady dance from Wayne's World.
Yeah.
And I would do that whole dance. Ba-doom, boom, boom, ba-boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Foxy. And I would do that like for my sister, and she would just be cracking up. And I would go, I remember my buddy Scott Walrath, I'd be spending the night at his house, and I could come in and I could do the whole motivational speaker. You know what I mean? Problem is, you're not using your paper for writing. You're using it for rolling doobies. Yeah.
Nice.
Right. And I would,
Yeah.
and the Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura. Oh, righty then. So,
Do you feel like that plays out better in because you do improv?
yeah.
Like it lets you kind of do these characters and stuff like that.
Yeah. I never wanted to do stand-up. Stand-up terrified me. Still does. I became an improv comedian, right? I became an improv comedian first.
Yeah.
And I felt right at home with improv. Because again, I'm more character based. I like scene partners. I like interact.
Right. This car ride, I've seen quite a few. It's been pretty awesome.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, well, that guy shut up.
No, it's great. I was like, you got range.
Right. Well, you know, but yeah, but standing on stage and just telling jokes was mortifying to me and still is. And so I definitely use my improv and my acting as a crutch. Even your wife said, oh, you're so expressive and you do all these act outs. And that's where I'm funny, is doing act outs. I've really struggled with sort of the writing and the jokes and that sort of it, which I've been trying to develop. But yeah, I started doing improv, and all I wanted to do when I moved to LA, I wasn't really moving there to be a stand-up comedian. I moved there, I wanted to be a comedic actor. I wanted to be like Dwight from The Office, you know? And that never really happened to me, but I kept getting just pulled or led or whatever influence, you know, if you're religious, it's God. If you're not, if you're spiritual, it's the universe or whatever. I don't even want to get into all of that because I don't know what's going on. I can barely see the edge of my nose. You're right. Maybe it's Satan. Yeah. Well, you know, you got to sell your soul to somebody.
Yours?
Whoever's going to get me that gig, man. All right. If it's the true and living God, if it's Satan, you know.
I don't think I would get much for it. I got a coupon to do so.
You got to keep 50% off. You get free fries.
My wife's like, you overpaid.
But yeah, you know, for some reason, I always end up getting pulled back into stand-up, and it's where I always end up putting my main motivation. And so I'm just trusting that.
Yeah.
And I do love stand-up.
Right.
And I've been learning more and more to love the journey and the process because, you know, as I've talked a lot about, if you're not loving the process, if you're not loving the grind, if that's just miserable, then you probably got to do something else, because what I'm learning is it's actually all process.
Right.
Like there isn't get to this thing and then there's no more work.
It's all, you're always kind of like figuring out and then like refining and so forth. But I like the enjoy the process. I have I do like affirmations and I one of my things is there's no competition, and this is just referring to myself and competing against being good or bad, but I said just enjoy the process.
Right.
And in that, it takes that sort of like intensity out of it, and just enjoy the process because you've been doing this. I've had some success. I've done, and so I don't get into this. I got to do well with just competitiveness against myself, not against anybody else or anything like. But I'm like, there's no competition. Just enjoy the process. It's a journey. What's it?
Yeah, really the only competition is myself.
Yeah.
I'm not competing against anybody else other than myself yesterday, and
I stopped competing against myself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm just going to enjoy the process. So I'm not like, I have to do better, or I have to do better than I did. I'm just going to enjoy the process. I know my goal is to get better. I know that, but like not to be so, adamant and not to be so aggressive in that. So.
Well, I love that. I'm so glad that you came on to be my first guest. Well, we're on a little road trip here. So everybody, this is Jas Clay, my first guest ever on the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast.
What's that, Jay?
Jay. By the way, I thought your name was Jas, and I understand that
nobody gets it right. But
that's
the wife's like, he doesn't get mad. I'm like, as long as you're not mad at me or trying to hit me or whatever, I'm fine.
Yep. Call me whatever, just don't hit me.
Yeah, just don't.
I feel like there's something really deep under that, which we do not have time to dive into on the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. That's probably for the Dr. Phil podcast. Maybe you can get on that show later and we'll resolve the...
Testicular cancer. No.
Well, everybody, it has been great chatting with you. Thank you to Jas.
It's been a fun road trip.
You bet.
Yeah. It's been a blast.
You bet. We've had so much fun. So everybody, I hope you're out there living your dreams, living your life, having a great time. We love you all so much. And I will talk to you tomorrow.